During this month's Defensive Tactics Quarterly Training, we're going to cover the Hobble leg restraints. Specifically, we're going to review the maximum and straight leg positions. The Hobble leg restraints may be used to restrain the legs of a violent kicking offender. Before we review the Hobble, we should discuss excited delirium, as these individuals often continue to struggle after they've been placed in handcuffs and pose a risk of injury to both themselves and the officers attempting to control them. Excited delirium may be a result of chronic mental illness or associated with the abuse of an illegal stimulant such as cocaine. Symptoms of excited delirium include removal of clothing or hyperthermia, extreme aggression towards objects, particularly glass, violent resistance or physical struggling with officers, self-inflicted injuries, incoherent screaming or yelling, subject suddenly goes unconscious after a struggle, talking incoherently, profuse sweating, hyperactivity prior to contact, and hallucinations. If an officer is receiving information while en route to a call that gives indication of excited delirium, EMS should be notified immediately. Prior to contact with these individuals, an officer should, if feasible, wait for cover, as these subjects often engage in a violent struggle. This should give you adequate cover to handcuff and potentially hobble the subject should they continue to fight. As soon as they are controlled, EMS should be sent in immediately. These subjects should not be transported by an officer. They should be taken to a hospital in an ambulance. Remember, excited delirium is a serious medical emergency. There's been extensive research regarding excited delirium, and current recommendations from medical experts call for overwhelming force on the part of the officers. The longer the physical struggle and exertion continues, the greater the likelihood of the person being consumed by excited delirium. However, it should be noted that some individuals may be beyond saving, regardless of the efforts of the responding officers. Shortening the duration of the encounter is easier said than done, as these individuals often do not feel pain and therefore are extremely hard to control. Less lethal tools may not work, and these individuals have often been described as having superhuman strength. The Taser is an excellent tool for controlling these individuals, as it does not rely on pain. When the Taser is used on an excited delirium subject and it appears to be effective, officers should attempt to move in and handcuff the subject while they're being tased. This will minimize the duration of the encounter. We will now review the maximum and straight leg positions, as well as placing these individuals into police vehicles.
For maximum restraint and the straight leg technique, it takes two, and you have to approach from the head. And both Don and I are pinning the shoulder and pinning that outside elbow with our shin. So we have her locked in nice and tight. Now she's violently kicking, so we've decided that a hobble's a good choice for today. And what we're going to do is I'm going to leave my position and I'm going to slide down to pin those legs. As I leave my position, Don's going to lean across and he's going to pin my side of her upper body. So he's going to have the whole upper body while I go down to the ankles. So I'm going to shoot my shins across her legs and keep my hand up to protect my face, and then I inch myself down until I have one of my shins across the back of her calves. There's a sensitive nerve right there in the back of the leg just above the Achilles tendon, so if I can put my weight across that, that's going to help pin those legs down to the ground. I'm going to reach down, I'm going to cross those ankles if I can. It's not mandatory, but I want to do that if I can. And then I pull out my hobble. The hobble should be ready to go in that fully looped and loaded position. I'm going to seesaw it up underneath her toes, and then I'm going to cinch it down as tight as I can. It's okay if the hobble gets twisted, we just don't want it twisted in the alligator clip. And then I'm going to take the slack of the hobble up into my hand closest to her head. With my other hand, I'm going to come up underneath the toes, and I'm going to bend her toes. I'm going to arch her foot. And as I pull up on the toes and pull up on the hobble, I'm going to transition my weight from my left leg to my right leg, pulling her feet up toward her back. So I transition, get her feet tucked up here close to her butt, slide the hobble up underneath the handcuff chain. Your partner can help you do this, and then it gets clipped back onto the hobble itself, and then we can release her. We've tied the feet to the handcuffs in this maximum restraint position. Just remember, by directive, there should be at least a 90-degree bend in the legs of the person that's been placed in the maximum restraint position. If, because of body type, you can't get this 90-degree bend, then you need to opt for the straight leg technique. And we want to immediately roll her over onto her side to allow for free breathing. And we can frisk that 60 percentile area also. Now, when it's time to put the subject in a police car, what we need to do is roll her back onto her stomach. So we're going to do that. My partner and I are going to stand facing each other on either side of the body. And with the hands closest to the head, we're going to reach down and grab the bicep. With our other hand, we're going to go and grab pants on the thigh. And he and I are going to lift together, we're going to pick her up at the same time. We're going to pick her up and let her down onto our thighs to help support her weight. So we need to do this lifting with our legs, not our backs, and do it on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to sidestep her head first toward the police car. And we put her in the car. Okay, as we place her in the car, we're going to shuffle step head first. Now this door V is going to get a little tight, so we have to work together, support her on her thighs, and get her chest onto that back seat. It helps if you can get a third officer coming in the back, the other side of the car, to help slide her across. And once she's in the car, we're going to roll her up onto her side so she's facing forward in the car. The seat belts get clipped down through the legs and through the arms and get cinched tight to help prevent her from rolling down into the footwell. The straight leg technique starts off looking just like the maximum restraint technique. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot down the legs, protecting my face, pinning those legs to the ground, open up, cross those ankles, get the hobble out, and it goes up underneath the toes just like we did the first time for maximum restraint. The difference now is that instead of gathering it in my hand, I'm going to clip it back onto itself. So now I'm done with that hobble. I'm going to ask my partner for his hobble. He'll hand me his hobble ready to go, and I'm going to take this one, seesaw it up underneath the toes, and now I need to get it up to the knees. So I got to do a little transition here. I need to change legs on the back of her legs, and I seesaw this hobble right above her kneecap. Get it nice and tight, and then again, clip it back onto itself. At this point, she's hobbled using the straight leg technique. And if she's going to spend any time on the ground, we're going to immediately roll her onto her side. Be sure to pin that leg so that she doesn't kick you, because they can still dolphin kick in this position. They can kick up sideways. Okay, so she'd remain on the ground in this position. When it's time to place her into the police car, we're going to roll her back onto her belly. My partner and I are going to face each other on either side of the body. This time we're going to grab the bicep. And we have a handle now. We'll have that the strap that's at her knees to lift her up. So lifting on 3. 1, 2, 3. Onto our thighs. And this time we're going to shuffle step and place her in the car feet first. We're going to shuffle her feet first this time on straight leg technique in toward the car. So we get her feet in there. It's important that this time we roll her up so she's facing forward. Our third officer is going to help slide her through. And he's going to undo the hobble on the other side of the car, and he's going to tie her foot to that U-bolt, which is down on the floor attached to the bar of the cage. So once he gets that hobble wrapped around a few times, he'll clip it back onto itself, or you can clip it onto the U-bolt, and then we can sit her up, and she gets seated in the car, seat belted in, and in this technique she's going to ride facing forward just like a normal person in the back of the car. Per the Hobble directive, there's some mandatory things that we have to do when we place people in the maximum restraint position or the straight leg technique. For maximum restraint, there's 4 things that you have to do. The first is you have to notify a supervisor, and the supervisor should come to the scene and decide whether or not this person's to be transported. If they are transported, it's a 2-person transport. 1 officer driving the car, 1 officer over in the passenger seat watching the person that's in the back to make sure that they are not going unconscious, that their breathing is okay. We need to notify the destination, wherever we're taking them, whether it's detox, jail, at the hospital. We need to notify that destination that they were placed in the maximum restraint position so that they too can watch the person for a while, a couple hours afterwards to make sure that everything's fine, that they're breathing okay, that their heart's working fine. And the last thing we have to do is write a report. Now for the straight leg technique, there's only one mandatory thing that we have to do, and that's write a report. So that makes it a little more simple.
Remember, when encountering a subject displaying symptoms of excited delirium, it is important to attempt to end the confrontation as soon as possible. This may be accomplished with the use of cover or the taser. After a subject is placed into handcuffs and they continue to violently struggle, the maximum restraint position or the straight leg technique are the 2 approved methods for controlling a subject's feet.